I'm Charlie. This is Mabel. She's just hanging out on this particular video because I realize I posted a lot of experimental content on this channel, but I haven't exactly talked about my story of how I died last year, or really how I just kind of went through a number of different experiences I've been through. I write about it on my Substack, but there are just all these new kind of fascinating things that I continue to be able to explore, like the fact that I channel right now, and like not channel right now, but channel through my hands with writing, and that something as simple as a name that comes up on an index card is actually an entire Akashic record written out. Like, this is actually the story of how I, as Charlie, came into being, because before I died, I had a little thing called dissociative identity disorder. And I don't know if you've ever heard about someone's near-death experience who used to be multiple people, but let me tell you, it's involved, right? I know, it's involved. It's a very involved situation. And even though I've written about it, I haven't really talked about it so much, and I certainly haven't done it while reading and channel talking with the light language in my hands. And now that I have Mabel here to distract with a number of other things, I'd just like to introduce myself and at least some of where some of the creative journey of the last 2 years has been for me, because it's kind of only just getting started, and I'm a multi-dimensional channel. I read Akashic records. I absolutely do talk to Gaia, to Gabriel, to other archangels. I'm gonna be honest, I'm not a fan of archangels. I think they're fine. They're fine, but they're not as human as, the female ascended masters that are not talked about very often, and just humans themselves going through awakenings. We all have a lot more to say, I think, than any archangel possibly could. But that's just one girl's opinion. So I'm going to read two of my Substack posts that one I wrote last November or so, before I had a second 5-day bout of trance channeling, because that's actually kind of what it was. My near-death experience was just a multi-day trance channeling state where had to go through a bunch of life reviews and also a bunch of other very bizarre things, because when you're heading toward death, the veil just sort of thins, and then you have access to all kinds of things. What I do know is I came back with the ability to talk with my hands in light language. What is light language? To me, it's a way of translating what comes through. From the Akashic realm. Thank you, Mabel. That's what it feels like. It feels like I'm allowing my hands to have their own autonomy to describing what's going on in a similar way that looks like sign language, but isn't like American Sign Language. It's energetic in nature. It's its own calibrated tool that I've sort of crafted on my own in ways that I'm still uncovering too. So enjoy whatever this channel is. And if you'd like to know more, I have a website, I have Substacks, a Patreon, just kind of trying to build a few things here, because my channeling is taking me in the direction of building out video games and oracle decks and card games, which I've just done apparently. I say apparently, it took me a solid month of work, but I made my own oracle deck that I started first on note cards because it's just fun. And we have all the tools these days to take personal ideas and create something with them, even if it's not altogether that polished yet. So I am ready to talk about my near-death experience on camera by reading my first article from last November, where I titled, I'm ready to talk about my near-death experience. 9 months ago, this would have been April 2024, who we thought we were changed in a matter of days. We went from our dissociated parts to one integrated brain and body during what I can only really describe as a near-death experience. In the weeks leading up to this, A few of our parts had spontaneously fused. We'd heard about it as a potential, but hadn't focused on integrating because we'd spent so much time getting to know everyone in here and finding a way to allow each of us to live our shared life. It felt wrong to even insinuate that we'd ever integrate or fuse, whatever you want to call it. We also had only been exposed to the idea that the way in which a system fuses is by collectively deciding who you will live as, and everyone just fuses into that. It always felt like a weird clinical bullshit way of saying, you're good enough to always front and everyone else just needs to deal with it. Right, Mabel? I agree. Stupid. Even those who rarely fronted and couldn't provide robust details about what it meant to be who they were, well, those parts of us still deserved to have their own sovereign place within us. Can you tell? Wasn't really a fan. We weren't collectively a fan of the whole let's all integrate thing. And we didn't need to. We were completely functionally multiplicitous. In fact, learning about the DID accelerated this growth in ways that we'd always tried to do, but kind of struggled to, because when you're not turning inward and having conversations with whoever's in there, you can't really get on the same page about anything. We'd managed to live a life that up to that point had all the highs and lows of existing as a human. We just did it differently and in shared pieces. We recognized that the lack of love and protection that was our early childhood led our brain and body to figure out a way to thrive. Wasn't a perfect system, and life was always kind of a struggle, but this resilience gave us the freedom to just keep living, especially when things were hard. The implication that any one of us should be deemed worthy enough to just be who we all basically pretend we're being now, I don't know which psychologist thought that narrative up, but it's fucking stupid and needs to stop. There are no bad parts inside of any of us, and all of us have parts. I think I linked to some very specific research about that, but internal family systems, right? The ones that made up who we were, who I am now, just had varying degrees of emotional baggage they weren't ever able to put down. Only after we turned our attention inward and began having these internal conversations and understandings did our brain and body reconnect the dissociated segments. It's just basic neuroplasticity at work. Because we'd only ever been exposed to the idea of integration from the clinical side, none of us were really okay with it. It felt judgmental, impractical, and like this developmental resiliency mechanism that's labeled a disorder was deeply misunderstood. We'd made peace with living a fractal life, and were working on finding the balance and ensuring that everyone inside who wanted a say in how we lived, with work, with friendships, with hobbies, etc., not only got a vote, but also got opportunities to live their life too. Inside one body, we had non-binary folks, women, men, children, and non-human representations of deep wounds that we were providing love and support. We had achieved being able to consciously switch, and we're in the process of rebuilding our life together. This was post-COVID. I actually did not know. We did not know that this was a dissociated system of beings until toward the end of 2020. After about 8 months of intense EMDR therapy that did great things, but was also really hard to do. Then we got the diagnosis, and we operated in a different set of, okay, let's try to make some dreams come true as a collective. And it helped dramatically. One little diagnosis that says, hey, refocus inward. We'd even gone so far as to legally change our name. Charlie's not the name that we used to have. If anything, it was we all knew there would be a moment when the separations would occur, and there would be one that emerges. So they named me. Charlie wasn't really for them, it was a name for me. The little sister who got born a little bit later, the latest born, those with DID get it. You can get new ones. You can create new ones as long as there is a path through and out. After the there's like a sequence at which in adulthood it stops, because this is only a mechanism you can create in childhood, or at least it used to be. I have other theories on if you have a channeled brain state, you've bifurcated your brain, you've gone into this series. I do actually think more people have dissociative identity disorder than they understand. because the 1 and 2 of beingness is enough to qualify you to be a person who has this segmentation. Different conversation for a different potential video and article I haven't written yet. But we'd made peace with this fractal life. We'd changed our name to Charlie. And we just wanted a name that would embody who we were becoming and allow everyone inside to go by this new title while keeping their personal names. For the most part, Randy was only ever, well, our therapist too, but was only the only one who ever used any of our internal names. So just FYI, Randy, husband of many years. So 2 months before our near-death experience, Patricia, one of our internals, was working one afternoon. In an instant, she just noticed a sensation in our body. Simply felt like love, like home. "Oh my God," she said to everyone inside, "I think I love myself." One by one, everyone inside sort of checked in and acknowledged being able to sense it as well. It was a visceral, full-body experience that felt familiar, but unlike anything we'd ever known experiencing before. It was then that we all believed we'd achieved what we'd been looking for. Self-love and acceptance, just on a group level. And what followed in the coming weeks were these spontaneous downloads of wisdom and understanding about our life, about the meaning of existing, and about how to relate to ourselves and others in ways we'd never considered. Our capacity for forgiveness and empathy leveled up, and there were physical sensations that we could only describe as feeling like we'd been infused with some energy, usually inside our head or chest. When we were describing it to our husband, we said it felt like gates were being unlocked inside. It was like tapping into the source of love was finally allowing our brain and body to connect at warp speed. We knew it was healing, just didn't quite have the language as to what that meant. These moments of unlocking continued until I got very distracted by life. We moved to our new home here in Connecticut, in a new state, and spent a long weekend. We literally moved, and then in like 4 days later, drove up to Vermont for the solar eclipse with friends. And when we got home, we were so exhausted. We spent the next 2 days in bed, just not even capable of anything. Then the fever started. We'd gotten sick with the flu, but we didn't know it at the time. And our fever got so high, we just stopped sleeping. I don't know when the fever dreams began, but I do remember basically becoming aware of the fact that I was in a dream state, but completely conscious. It felt like being in a lucid dream, and this awareness that I was probably not supposed to be witnessing this from my conscious state. I'm just going to say, I've done it now a couple more times. I now know I was in a trance channel state. I didn't know it. And even in November when I was writing this out, I hadn't done it again. This was before the second time I went into a trance channel state for multiple days. It was a trance channel state because, heart stopped because of the flu. I didn't write it in here, but my first actual indication of that was on the first day of just being in bed, because we got home and then I could not get out of bed. Husband had to go get our dog from the sitter. And when he came back home, I called both of our dogs. And it wasn't Corbin and Mabel. Mabel's our newer dog. This was our dog, Lewis, who had passed away the year prior. And I saw Lewis. They both, like when Corbin came in, so too did Lewis. So I'm just going to say, if you do see a dog that you consciously know is dead, and you know that you're not really seeing him, but you're kind of also still seeing him, you might be close to death. I'm just saying. That's what I experienced anyway. That was how like looking back, I'm like, oh, okay, that was definitely the like, you're dying because there's your dead dog. He's just popping on in to say hi alongside your other one. It was a very sweet moment. But the kind where you look back and you go, okay, all right. But the flow of information through me felt like I was in observer only mode. And I was acting out these scenes from someone else's life. Doing Akashic Record readings now, I've been able to learn what that discernment looks like now. And putting it back into memories, it can be jarring, but I was in this quantum space basically that whole time. I was just consciously active and aware because I was also having this turned on. the capacity to speak in hand light language. Something that comes from a soul level lineage. I'm told it comes from an Atlantean timeline, Atlantean lived experience. But just like how I can, like I can visualize Akashic record containers, same thing. I could doodle out that lifetime's name and have a bit of a map for what it is that they lived too. Again, just things that I can do now, since all of this. Some of the scenes involved answering questions about the universe and quantum physics. I've actually got a second one that I was planning on sharing in this video, but as I'm going through this and how long this is taking, I'm going to save that one. You can find it on my Substack. I might talk about it, but this one's already kind of, I can feel the resonance of what I'm saying and everything I'm sharing, and it's like, you can feel it when you're in your own Akashic record container of a video. It's like it's filling up. I can already tell. So I'm going to edit what I said earlier. I'm not going to read you two. I'm just finishing this one. But yes, there were experiences that were being in a lab, because my trajectory at time of death for me personal, group personal, but this me, personal level of where do you go when you die? I just went to the cosmic lab because at the time my religion was science and psychology and self-help and my internal family. So my internal family died first because I did go through their life reviews. I'm going to talk about that in a minute, but and then set up an interdimensional psychological testing ground where me, still in my youngest state, could be experimented on by my own internal family in the quantum realm, because you're close to death. And if you get a near-death experience and you're like me and you're super nerdy and then you don't really believe in like any kind of normal afterlife, you don't go to a normal afterlife. You go to the in-between. At least I did. They actually also went to different afterlife life review scenarios too. Not something that I'm going to talk about today. All right, a little bit of a channeled message coming through. See, I don't really know what I am anymore, okay? I'm reading you something that I channel wrote after having a day, well, after having a week of COVID and being sick, and then I just sort of channel drew characters for my upcoming video game, because that's, and little like, this is going to be a thing this is going to be a little charm that you can get if you play the game right, and when you first meet this character and you do it the way that she wants you to, you get this charm. But if you don't do it the way she wants you to, whatever, you're fine, but you don't get the special charm, because it's going to be one of those kinds of just silly games, and it's got all my channel creative stuff flowing out into this, whatever this is. I truly don't know. I don't know. Higher self says make the YouTube videos. I say, what kind of YouTube videos? Higher self says just do it, and I'm like, higher self's just me. It's hard to live without a committee that's inside of your head, and I really, like, those of you that have always just been a singleton in here and not had DID, I'm sorry, but the conversation, like having the internal support, is way more fun and way better. Even when it was really hard, it was just better. It's a better system. DID is just a better way of existing, okay? Like I've now tried both. I have actually worked my way to get back to having a brain that can handle the capacity to mimic DID, just so that I can have the appropriate levels of channeling to survive this world, because I spent 37 years surviving it with DID, and it's taken me 16 months to get back to the capacity to do that with my own channeling abilities, and it would appear that's all I wanted. To just do this and use my capacities to basically continue living as though I have DID, even though I don't because of just reconfigurations and reconstitutions of things. But I still have access to my family now, finally, again. It's been a long journey. I'm going to get back into reading. Thank you. So, some of the scenes that did involve answering questions about the universe and quantum physics, I saw and understood the perpetual motion of energy at one point and the bridging of human consciousness from where we were to where we were going. So basically, old Earth, new Earth. I saw a bridge. I literally saw, I saw a number of things. All of them indicating, yay, we're still just playing our games, but there's no reversing course on the whole human evolution timeline trajectory because we don't go backwards. We don't really, time itself goes backwards, but we don't go backwards. We go, anyway, already happened, got to see it. And then, for 2 days, I played out scenes that felt like they came from other lifetimes, only knowing it in the way you know what's being represented when you're in a dream. Each of the dreams centered around one of our parts, each one reaching their satisfying conclusion as though they were attaining what they'd always wanted. These were life reviews. I just translated them through how best I could understand it in the moment because a lot of those lifetimes were not anywhere near this one. All time is now, right? So when you're channeling in those that then become fragments of your own lived experience, you not only have to live through their life reviews of this lifetime, but you have to live through the life reviews of their lifetime when it ended. This is the timeline point, which means that the all time is now capacities for humans and channeling is changing. This is what I've since come to learn, but I watched my own process with that unfold in real time last year. It's been a bit. So after these days, our fever receded a bit, and Scout, youngest alter in here, fronted for an entire day. Unlike every other time she'd fronted, though, she had no adult supervision from anyone inside. I was watching Scout entertain herself in our bedroom. She'd been given very specific instructions before fronting that she could not leave the bedroom and could not touch the phone. Both instructions she did follow. And having the absolute time of her life being in charge of a very exhausted body without being restrained by anyone else. Something she'd never had the freedom to do until then. Everyone else had their scenes play out like a dream, where I was physically just in bed or on the floor. With Scout, she was also playing something out, but in real time. She was trying to find an object of every color because she was building her own rainbow bridge. I was able to talk to her just once, and I asked her where she was going, to which she replied she was building her bridge to go live with the dogs. All of our dogs and cats who have since passed. At the time, the connection to death didn't cross my mind. I was sort of observer to her acting, her existing. I was simply enjoying how much fun she was having, trying to find those colors in the room. Only after she receded did my fever return, and it was even stronger. This time, there wasn't exactly a dream state that I observed, but rather an exploration into the depths of my fears. It didn't feel scary, but felt like I was playing out different worries to their end state, one of which was that our new home, one being serviced by oil and propane, would suffer a deadly explosion. The dream culminated in feeling the propane tank below our window exploding, and as I felt the heat tear through my back and feet, time stopped the way it would in a movie, just before the flames actually made contact. It stayed like that for just a moment, long enough for me to remark how incredible it was to be able to pause something like this and still be able to feel it. Then I felt the presence of someone else, and when I asked who was there, she softly said she was Gaia, and that it was time for me to learn how to become stone. I'm not going to get into this more, but just know that at this stage and everything else that I've since experienced in those trance channel states, but also just in reading, understanding things as things have accelerated for all of us, this year has been an accelerant for everybody. I don't know how else to say it other than that literally was a felt experience. I felt the heat. I easily could have been a mistranslation of whatever it is was going on in my body, and it could have just been a metaphor for, hey, your body is now dead. Your heart has now exploded. It has now gone boop. because what followed was my body kind of responding. I watched my body take over at that point, basically, and felt and saw, to an extent, mind's eye saw, Gaia. Just a woman that I didn't know, like it wasn't recognizable to me. Dark skin, not clothed in any particular way, kind of just modern, which I now understand as being more of the representation of Gaia herself. All right, thank you. I'll get back into reading. She's like, stop channeling, just read and touch me. Immediately, I sat up and folded my legs together as I began to breathe deeply. I am stone resonated through my head, and I felt as if every cell in my body was solidifying. Gaia returned and told me it was time to learn to become earth, to become land. And I began to move in yoga poses, stretching and releasing tension along my spine. I don't know how long all this lasted, but at one point I found myself laughing that I knew yoga when the most I'd ever done was follow yoga with Adrian, and even then it had been years since I'd tried. During these movements, images of a beautiful island danced through my thoughts, and I felt as though I was embodying the movement of an island forming, the millions of years of creation fast-forwarding to match the rhythm of me in the here and now. It was all very peaceful until the final stages where I saw a new volcano erupting on this beautiful island, and I asked Gaia what to do about the lava rocks that were growing in my lungs. Gaia replied simply, it's time to learn to become water. Without thinking or even responding, I began to crawl into my shower. I sat down, turned on the water, and sighed as the sensation of lava inside me began to dissipate. My husband found me in the shower the next morning. All of this with the severe fever spike had happened while he was asleep, and he rushed me to the hospital. Things got a bit traumatizing at that point, but when I was finally able to sleep and wake back up, I was in awe of everything I just experienced. And I was deeply confused that I no longer had anyone else's voice inside my head. No inner community, no one else to talk to, and now needing to navigate trauma so severe it rippled for months with no one else to share the load with. I don't really want to talk about the hospital right now, but let's just say that no one listened to what my husband had to say. No one considered the fact that I had a fever. No one decided I was anything but crazy. Didn't even do a nasal swab until halfway through my stay. Where they did confirm I had the flu, and they didn't do anything for me. Nothing. They put a mask on me. They left me in a conference room overnight. Anyway, to what I actually want to talk about, though. I still don't know that I have all the true understandings of what happened, and I might never be able to fully describe it all. I know that I'm both integrated and still in the process of integrating, because establishing new neural and central nervous system connections takes time. It doesn't just happen in one day. This particular level of integration stuff lasted for about 15 months. I don't even know if I'm totally... I am in a spot... Okay, channeled through. I am now in a spot where what is what will continue to be. No more bifurcation events. I basically went through this rebirth, had a couple of go through it, recreate some internal pieces to help navigate this journey. And then a final reconstitution and reconsolidation level series of events. Rebirths. Like, we all just are going through death cycles after death cycles right now. But I also know that what I experienced was profoundly transformational and led me into a spiritual awakening, or was an intense spiritual awakening itself. And I know that having lived a life segmented, then connected, then integrated has provided me with so much wisdom and clarity that it's made things like reading the Akashic Records effortless. I wrote this in November. I had started reading Akashic Records in August. Instantaneous for me. I never experienced the crickets. I just watched and read and studied, and then when I sat down to practice, it went, oh, okay, this is just, oh, okay. And then I just learned what all of that internal work that we had done really had just provided me with discernment training. It just makes it easy. It's the kind of thing where it's like you've been speaking this language at home your whole life, and then one day you go somewhere and someone's like, oh my God, you speak Spanish? And it's like, no, I just speak what I've always talked about at home. And they're like, okay, well, that's Spanish. And it's like, oh, it has a name. So that's kind of been my awakening journey is, oh, okay, where this information comes from, you all call it the Akashic Records. Okay, cool. I call it the quantum realm or the imagination or just like, the place that's not here. But people have names for it and labels for it. And we all use a lot of different labels to say the same things, which is funny, but it works because it's a belief system based existence. So it makes sense, right? So yeah, effortless, doesn't mean easy. It just means that I've had a lot of training. A lot of training that was not formal, a lot of training that was just, this is how I've had to survive. So, you go internal when you need to, when you don't have a lot of external support. Makes for a really helpful spiritual awakening and new earth timeline bifurcation situation. I'm gonna put her back in the frame because she's the cuter one. All right, I spent so long getting to know everything about, I can't read, honey, you gotta look the other way. I spent so long getting to know everything about what's inside of me. It makes it easy to trust when something I'm focusing on is not coming from me. Because I know the resonance, the frequency of love, it makes it easy to pay attention and translate what comes through. And the fact that my body participates in this translation almost feels like a bonus. It looks weird to be doing a bunch of mudras while I'm channeling, and it feels kind of like I'm doing my own version of sign language, but I know it's just my body participating. I'm wholly connected now, and capable of interacting with myself, with others, and with beings outside of this human experience. I know that I'm still all of who we used to be simply because my fears of being seen as crazy are loudly telling me how they feel. Thanks to all that work we did to listen to one another, I almost feel like I was given the gift of life by all of them. And this time I'm supported by the foundation they all worked so hard to create for me. I guess it was less of a near-death experience and more of a quite literal death of who everyone else was alongside my own birth, but also continuation. Spiritually transformational experience. There we go. Death experience of them, spiritual transformation experience of me, because I was already here. There we go. Okay. I have every memory that's available. I have all the insecurities, all the anxieties, all the strengths, all the wisdom. But I can also confidently assert that I'm none of who we used to be. None of them. If anything, I've only ever been the silent observer of this life, connected but never running anything until now. And whatever structure our brain created to ensure that we could thrive now has been altered again by years of very intense, very directed healing. I'm truly in awe. That's what I wrote. That's not different now, but in the months since, a lot has changed, including this. She wasn't with me when I wrote this the first time. And I appreciate your contribution to the telling of this particular tale, because I will be making another video talking about some of the other stuff I experienced during that particular week and other weeks, because it's all informed the writing that I've done on Substack, on My Fractal Life, that's substack.com, in the Physics of Light Language, that's substack.com, and the book, The Physics of Light Language, my memoir about this, some of this. It's a lot. There's a lot to talk about. There's a lot to share. And this is going to continue being an experimental YouTube channel because I don't know. I don't really have a good answer for you as to what I'm doing with my time, because I am actively in the process of trying to create a business, several businesses, but a business with a group of like-minded people who also would love to make video games and card games and board games and content. I don't working on it. Hope you you like it. If this video interests you, please subscribe. That's what we're supposed to do here, right? Okay. Mabel, say bye. Bye, everybody. My name's Mabel, and maybe Charlie's gonna have a voiceover of me here and there. In the meantime, thank you for sticking around. Thank you for listening to my lady's stories, and please go read her stuff on Substack or support her on Patreon. All right, now. We're gonna get